The stagecoach rattled to a stop in front of the dusty Fort Stockton depot, and Sienna Reynolds felt her heart hammering against her ribs so hard she thought it might burst through her chest. She had traveled over 1,000 miles from Boston, Massachusetts, to this remote corner of West Texas, all to marry a man she had never met, a man whose voice she had only read in letters translated by her younger brother before he died of fever last winter. "Miss, we have arrived," the driver called down, his voice gruff but not unkind. Sienna gathered her skirts and reached for the cane that had been her constant companion since she was old enough to walk. She had been born without sight, her mother often told her, arriving into this world with eyes as lovely as spring moss, but unable to perceive even the brightest sun. Her fingers found the door handle, and she carefully descended the steps, counting them as she went. 1, 2, 3. Her boots touched Texas soil for the first time. The air smelled different here, drier. It carried scents of livestock and leather, dust, and something she could not quite name. Heat radiated up from the ground even though it was late September of 1882. "Miss Reynolds." A woman's voice, middle-aged and curious. "Yes, that is me," Sienna said, turning toward the sound. "I am Mrs. Patterson. I run the boarding house here in town." "Your intended, Mr. Quinn Northfield. He sent word that I should collect you and bring you to my establishment to freshen up before meeting him this evening. He wanted to give you time to recover from your journey." Sienna felt a flutter of gratitude mixed with anxiety. The letters had been formal, practical. Quinn Northfield had advertised for a wife to help run his ranch, someone who could cook and manage a household. She had responded honestly, stating her condition plainly in that first letter, expecting no reply. But he had written back. "I do not need eyes to run a household," she had dictated to her brother. "I have kept my family's home in Boston for 6 years since my mother passed. I can cook, clean, mend, and manage accounts by memory. If you can accept a wife who cannot see, I can accept a life in Texas." His response had been brief. "I accept your terms. I will send travel money." And now here she was, about to marry a stranger in a strange land. Mrs. Patterson guided her down the wooden sidewalk, describing the street as they went. "The general store is to your left, then the saloon, then the sheriff's office. We are heading to the end of the street here. My boarding house is the blue one, though I suppose that does not mean much to you, dear." "I appreciate the description nonetheless," Sienna said. "It helps me build a map in my mind." The boarding house smelled of lavender and cooking meat. Mrs. Patterson led her up a narrow staircase and into a room that felt small but clean. The bed was soft when Sienna sat on it, testing. "Mr. Northfield will come at 7 o'clock. That gives you 3 hours. There is water in the basin, fresh towels, and I will bring up a tray of food shortly. You must be famished. Thank you for your kindness." After Mrs. Patterson left, Sienna explored the room methodically, trailing her fingers along the walls, locating the window, the wardrobe, the washstand. This was how she learned spaces, through touch and memory. She unpacked her single trunk, hanging her 2 good dresses and folding away her underthings and nightclothes. When the food came, she ate slowly, trying to calm her nerves. What would Quinn Northfield be like? His letters had revealed little of his personality. He was 32 years old, ran a cattle ranch 10 miles outside Fort Stockton, and lived alone except for 3 hired hands who bunked in a separate building. He needed a wife because, as he had written, a man cannot live on burnt beans and solitude forever. The words had made her smile then. They seemed almost poetic for a rancher. At precisely 7 o'clock, she heard heavy footsteps on the stairs. A knock at the door. "Miss Reynolds, your gentleman caller is here," Mrs. Patterson announced. Sienna stood, smoothed her green traveling dress, and touched her hair to make sure it was still properly pinned. "Please send him in." The door opened. She heard him enter, heard the door close behind him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. She imagined he was looking at her, assessing her. She stood straight, chin up, waiting. "Miss Reynolds." His voice was deeper than she had imagined, rough around the edges like stone worn by wind. "I am Quinn Northfield, Mr. Northfield. I am pleased to finally make your acquaintance." Another pause. "Then, you are certain about this arrangement. It is not too late to change your mind. I can pay for your passage back to Boston." "Are you trying to dissuade me, Mr. Northfield?" "No." He said it quickly. "No, I just want to make sure you understand what you are agreeing to. Ranch life is hard. It is isolated. The house is not fancy, and I am not an easy man. I did not travel 1,500 miles to turn back now," Sienna said firmly. "I entered into this agreement with full understanding. I may not have eyes, but I am not naive about the realities of frontier life." "Are you having second thoughts now that you see you?" His voice moved closer. She could feel his presence now, just a few feet away. "Miss Reynolds, you are the prettiest thing I have seen in 10 years. That is not the issue." Heat crept up her neck. "Then what is the issue, Mr. Northfield? I need you to understand something." He was even closer now. She could smell him, leather and soap and something like pine. "There are things about me that might make you reconsider, things I did not put in my letters." "Such as?" "I am not a pretty sight, Miss Reynolds. I have scars, bad ones, from a fire 3 years back. Most women cannot look at me without flinching. Children sometimes cry. I am a hard man to look upon." Sienna felt something shift in her chest. Without thinking, she lifted her hand, reaching out toward where his voice came from. May you what? May I see you, in my own way?" She heard him draw in a sharp breath. "You want to touch my face, if you will allow it. I cannot judge with my eyes, Mr. Northfield. I can only know you through other senses. I would like to know the man I am about to marry." The silence stretched so long she thought he might refuse. Then he took her outstretched hand in his own. His hand was large, calloused, warm. He guided it to his face. She started at his jawline, tracing the strong bone structure. Stubble scratched her fingertips. She moved upward, feeling the shape of his cheekbones, the straight line of his nose. Then her fingers found the scars. They were on the left side of his face, ridged and uneven, the skin puckered and twisted. The scarring extended from his cheekbone down to his jaw and up to his temple. She traced them gently, without hesitation. "These are from the fire?" she asked softly. "Yes." "Tried to save the horses when the barn caught. Got most of them out, but a beam fell, pinned me down. By the time my men pulled me free, half my face was burned." "Does it still pain you?" "Not often. Sometimes in cold weather." She let her hand linger on his scarred cheek. "Then you will never see my scars." "What do you mean?" "I mean we are both marked by things beyond our control. I was born in darkness. You were scarred by fire. Neither of us chose our burdens, but here we are nonetheless. You will never see my blindness as a flaw because you have learned to live with your own difference. And I will never see your scars because I cannot see it all. Perhaps that makes us better matched than either of us intended." She heard him exhale, long and slow. His hand came up to cover hers where it still rested on his face. "Miss Reynolds, I think I chose better than I knew when I picked your letter from all the others." "How many others were there?" "3. But yours was the only one that was honest about everything. The others painted themselves as perfect. Nobody is perfect. I figured anyone brave enough to state their imperfections up front was someone worth knowing." Sienna smiled. "That is a practical way of looking at it. Practical is about all I am good at. Look, I know we are supposed to have some kind of courtship, but that does not make much sense given the circumstances. If you are willing, The preacher can marry us tomorrow. You can stay here tonight and I will come fetch you after the ceremony. Take you home to the ranch. We can figure out the rest as we go. That suits me fine, Mr. Northfield. You can call me Quinn. Then you should call me Sienna. Sienna. He said her name slowly like he was testing how it felt. That is a pretty name. What does it mean? It is a reddish-brown color like clay. My mother said it was the color of my hair when I was born, so she named me for it. I have never seen it, of course, but others have told me my hair kept that color. It is a good description. Your hair is that exact shade. They talked for another hour, sitting in 2 chairs by the window. He told her about the ranch, about the daily routines, about his hired men. Tom was 50 and gruff but loyal. Pete was 24 and still learning. And Miguel was 42, the best horseman Quinn had ever met, originally from Mexico but living in Texas since he was a boy. She told him about Boston, about growing up in a house full of younger siblings, about learning to navigate a world designed for the sighted, about losing her mother to pneumonia, and then, 6 months ago, losing her brother, the last of her family. The others had married and moved on, but she had stayed to care for their aging mother, and then suddenly she was alone in a city that had never quite felt like home. I wanted a fresh start, she said. Somewhere I could be useful. In Boston, people saw me as a burden, someone to pity. Here, perhaps I can simply be a person. You will never be a burden on my ranch, Quinn said firmly. I need someone who can manage the household, and from what you have told me, you are more than capable. We will work out systems that suit you. Whatever you need, we will figure it out. When he finally left, Sienna felt lighter than she had in months. Hopeful, even. This man with his scarred face and practical manner seemed like someone she could build a life with. The wedding took place the next morning at 10 o'clock in the small church at the end of Fort Stockton's Main Street. Mrs. Patterson stood as witness along with Quinn's foreman Tom. The ceremony was brief, the preacher's voice sonorous as he led them through vows that bound them together as husband and wife. When Quinn took her hand to slip the ring on her finger, his touch was gentle. The ring was simple, a smooth band that fit perfectly. You may kiss your bride, the preacher said. Quinn leaned down. His lips brushed hers, soft and tentative. It was Sienna's first kiss, and her heart raced at the contact, brief as it was. Thank you for taking a chance on me, Quinn whispered, so low only she could hear. Thank you for giving me a home, she whispered back. They had lunch at the boarding house with Mrs. Patterson, Tom, and a few other townspeople who wanted to meet the new Mrs. Northfield. Everyone was kind, if curious. Sienna fielded the inevitable questions about her blindness with practiced grace. Yes, she could cook. Yes, she could clean. Yes, she could manage a household. No, she did not need pity, just patience as she learned the layout of her new home. By 2 o'clock, she was seated beside Quinn on a wagon bench, her trunk loaded in the back, heading out of town toward her new life. The ranch was 10 miles northwest, Quinn explained, following a fairly well-maintained road for 8 miles and then a rougher track for the final 2. Tell me what it looks like, Sienna said as they rode. What looks like? Everything, the land, the sky, paint me a picture, so he did. His descriptions were halting at first, unpracticed, but as he went on, his words found a rhythm. He described the flat desert plains broken by rocky outcroppings, the distant mountains purple against the horizon. The sky, he said, was so blue it almost hurt to look at, with clouds like white cotton stretched thin. The vegetation was sparse, mostly scrub, brush, and mesquite, but there was a beauty in the starkness, in the way the land stretched endlessly in all directions. There is a creek that runs through my property, he said. Not much water this time of year, but enough. It keeps a line of cottonwoods alive, and that is where I built the house, in the shade of those trees. In summer, it is the coolest spot for miles around. It sounds peaceful. It can be. It can also be lonely. That is why I needed a wife, not just for the practical help, though that matters. But I got tired of talking to cattle and hearing only my own voice echo back. She reached over and found his arm, giving it a gentle squeeze. You will not be lonely anymore. They arrived at the ranch as the sun was lowering toward the western horizon. Quinn helped her down from the wagon and then offered his arm. Let me show you inside first, then I will give you a tour of the grounds. The house was single-story, built of adobe and wood. 4 rooms, Quinn told her. A main room that served as kitchen and living area. 2 bedrooms and a small washroom. The floors were wooden, recently swept. She could tell he had tried to clean before her arrival. He walked her through each room slowly, letting her trail her hands along the walls, the furniture, the door frames. In the kitchen, he showed her where everything was stored. Plates on the shelf above the wash basin. Pots hanging on hooks by the stove. Dry goods in the pantry. She memorized it all, already planning how she might reorganize to make things more efficient. The bedroom they would share was simple. A large bed, a wardrobe, a dresser, a washstand. A window that Quinn said faced east toward the sunrise. She unpacked while he brought in her trunk, hanging her dresses next to his few shirts, folding her things into the drawers he cleared for her. I will sleep in the spare room tonight, Quinn said. Give you time to adjust. This is all happening pretty fast. Sienna turned toward his voice. We are married, Quinn. You do not have to sleep in another room. I do not want to rush you. This arrangement, it is not a typical marriage. I figured we could take our time with certain aspects. She felt her way toward him until her hands found his chest. I appreciate your consideration, but I did not marry you to have a business partner. I married you to have a husband. We can learn each other. We have time. But I would prefer you stay. She felt his sharp intake of breath beneath her palms. Sienna, I do not want you to feel obligated. I do not feel obligated. I feel married. There is a difference. She tilted her face up to where she knew his would be. Kiss me again, like you mean it this time. His hands came up to frame her face, careful on the side with the scars. Then his lips found hers, and this kiss was nothing like the chaste brush in the church. This kiss was deep and searching, and Sienna felt heat bloom through her entire body. She had wondered what passion would feel like, had overheard enough whispered conversations between married women to have some idea. But the reality was so much more than she had imagined. They broke apart, both breathing hard. I will stay, Quinn said, his voice rough. If that is truly what you want. It is what I want. That night, he was gentle with her, patient as they learned each other in the darkness that was no different for her than broad daylight. He told her she was beautiful, and she believed him because his hands spoke the truth his words tried to convey. She traced the scars on his face, his shoulder, his chest, learning the map of him. They were both broken in their own ways, but together they seemed to fit. The next morning, Sienna woke to the smell of coffee and burning bacon. She smiled, dressed quickly, and made her way to the kitchen using the mental map she had built the night before. Let me help with breakfast, she said. I can manage, Quinn said, but she could hear the frustration in his voice. I am certain you can, but I am here now, and cooking is something I do quite well. Let me take over. You can pour the coffee. She felt her way to the stove, assessed the damage to the bacon, and salvaged what she could. Then she whipped up eggs and biscuits from memory, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. Within 20 minutes, they had a proper breakfast on the table. How did you do that? Quinn asked, amazed. Practice. When you cannot see, you learn to measure by touch and memory. You learn the sound of water reaching the right level in a pot. You learn the smell of bread when it is about to burn. You learn to trust senses other than sight. "I am going to eat well with you here," he said, and she heard the smile in his voice. Over the next few weeks, Sienna transformed the house. She established systems and routines. Everything had its place, and once she knew where things belonged, she could move through the house almost as efficiently as someone sighted. She learned the layout of the outbuildings by walking the grounds with Quinn each evening. The barn, the bunkhouse, the smokehouse, the chicken coop. She learned the voices of the hired hands and could distinguish each man by his footsteps. Tom was gruff but warm to her when she started sending hot meals out to the bunkhouse. Pete was shy and stammered when he talked to her, but he helped her build a rope guide system from the house to the chicken coop so she could collect eggs safely. Miguel taught her Spanish words and sang while he worked, beautiful sad songs that made her chest ache even when she could not understand all the words. She learned the sounds of the ranch. The lowing of cattle, the whinny of horses, the creak of the windmill, the clang of the dinner bell. She learned the rhythms of Quinn's days, when he would be nearby and when he would be out on the range. She learned to read his moods by the heaviness of his footsteps, the tightness in his voice. And slowly, carefully, they fell in love. It was not a lightning strike. It was a gradual unfolding, like a flower opening petal by petal. It was in the way Quinn started describing things to her without prompting, painting pictures with his words so she could see the world through him. It was in the way she learned to read the tension in his shoulders and knew to make his favorite stew on difficult days. It was in the quiet evenings spent on the porch, her hand in his, listening to the desert sounds. One evening in early December, about 2 months after her arrival, they sat bundled in blankets on that porch as the first real cold snap settled over West Texas. "Are you happy here?" Quinn asked suddenly. "Yes," Sienna said without hesitation. "Are you?" "I did not think I would ever be happy again after the fire. I figured I would just exist, running the ranch, living alone. But Sienna, you have brought life back to this place, to me." She turned toward him, reached up to touch his face, finding the scars she now knew as well as her own hands. "You gave me a purpose, a home, a reason to wake up in the morning. I was so lost after my brother died. I felt like I was drifting, waiting for my life to end because I had nothing left to live for. But here I have you. I have work that matters. I have a place where I belong." "I love you," Quinn said, and his voice cracked on the words. "I did not plan to. I thought this would be a practical arrangement. But Sienna, I love you so much it terrifies me." "I love you too," she whispered. "I think I have for weeks now, but I was afraid to say it. Afraid you would think I was being foolish, falling in love so quickly." "There is nothing foolish about it." He pulled her close, wrapped the blanket around both of them. "I think maybe we were always meant to find each other, two broken people who fit together right." They sat there until the cold drove them inside, and that night their lovemaking was different, slower and more tender, because now they had said the words and everything meant more. Winter settled in, and with it came new challenges. A harsh cold spell in January killed 3 head of cattle. The roof over the bunkhouse developed a leak that required repair. Quinn caught a bad cold that left him bedridden for a week, and Sienna nursed him through it, making broth and administering willow bark tea and reading to him from the Bible, the only book in the house, which she had memorized long ago. "How do you know where you are on the page?" he asked one day, voice hoarse from coughing. "I do not need the page. I learned it all by heart years ago when my brother would read to me. I memorized it so I could have something to turn to when I needed comfort." "Will you teach me to read better?" Quinn asked. "I know my letters, but not much more. Never had much schooling." So she started teaching him, using touch to help him trace letters, using recitation and memory to build his skills. It gave them something to do during the long winter evenings, and she loved the way he tried so hard, determined to improve. By spring, he could read simple passages on his own, and his pride in the accomplishment made her heart swell. Spring brought new life to the ranch. Calves were born, and Quinn would carry Sienna out to the pasture to let her feel the wobbly newborns, describing their coloring and markings. The cottonwoods leafed out, and Quinn said the green was so bright it looked like paint. Wildflowers bloomed, and he brought her handfuls, describing the colors while she inhaled their scents. "This one is bluebonnet," he said, placing a flower in her hand. "Blue as deep water. And this one is Indian paintbrush, red as sunset. And this is a buttercup, yellow as fresh butter." She tucked them behind her ear, smiling at his descriptions. It was in late April when she first suspected she might be pregnant. She had missed her monthly courses, and her breasts felt tender. She waited another week to be sure, then another, before she told Quinn. They were in the garden she had insisted on planting, her hands in the soil as she felt for weeds among the young vegetable plants. "Quinn, I need to tell you something." "What is wrong? You sound worried." "Nothing is wrong. At least I do not think so, but I believe I am with child." The silence stretched so long she started to worry. Then she heard him fall to his knees beside her, felt his hands cover hers in the dirt. "Truly," his voice was choked, "truly, I am almost certain." "Sienna, that is wonderful. That is the best news I have ever heard. A baby, our baby." He pulled her into his arms, dirt-covered hands and all, and held her so tight she could barely breathe. When he pulled back, she felt wetness on his cheeks. "Are you crying?" she asked softly. "Maybe. I never thought I would have this. A wife who loves me, a child, a family. I thought I would die alone on this ranch, scared and lonely. But you changed everything." She wiped his tears with her thumbs. "We changed everything together." They told the hired hands at dinner that evening. Tom clapped Quinn on the back so hard he nearly knocked him over. Pete stammered his congratulations, his face surely bright red if the heat she felt coming off him was any indication. Miguel sang a beautiful song in Spanish that Quinn quietly translated as a blessing for mothers and children. "Thank you," Sienna told them all. "You have made me feel so welcome here. This baby will be fortunate to grow up surrounded by good men." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Sienna felt sick in the mornings for a few weeks, but it passed. Her belly grew, and Quinn was fascinated by it, constantly asking if he could feel, marveling when the baby kicked. "What do you hope for?" Sienna asked one evening. "A boy or a girl, healthy," Quinn said immediately. "That is all I care about, healthy and happy. But if you could choose." "I suppose a boy might be practical, someone to help with the ranch eventually. But a little girl with your smile would be pretty wonderful too. Truly, Sienna, I do not care either way." "I hope the baby has your determination," she said, "your kindness, your strength. I hope the baby has your courage, your grace, your way of finding light in dark places." They had started working on a cradle, Quinn doing the carpentry while Sienna sewed bedding and tiny clothes. Mrs. Patterson had visited from town several times, bringing patterns and advice, becoming a friend in the process. It was late October, a few weeks before the baby was due, when trouble arrived at the ranch. Sienna was in the kitchen making bread when she heard riders approach. Multiple horses moving fast. She set down her dough and moved to the door, listening. "Where is Northfield?" A man's voice, hard and aggressive. "He is out checking the north pasture, should be back by midday. Can I help you with something?" That was Tom, his voice carefully neutral. "We are from the Rawlings Ranch, 5 miles east. Your boss has been moving cattle onto our land. We are here to discuss the matter." "That is not accurate. Mr. Northfield respects property lines. There must be some mistake." "No mistake. We have seen his brand on cattle grazing our grass, drinking from our creek. He either moves them back or there will be consequences. Sienna felt her heart speed up. This sounded dangerous. She moved carefully onto the porch, one hand on her rounded belly. "Gentlemen, I am Mrs. Northfield. I am certain this is a misunderstanding that can be resolved peacefully. If you would care to wait for my husband to return, I can offer you coffee, and we can discuss the matter like reasonable people." "Who is this?" the aggressive voice asked. "Quinn's wife," Tom said. "Now I suggest you take her up on that offer and settle down." There was muttering, then a different voice spoke. "Fine, we will wait. But if Northfield does not make this right, there will be trouble." Sienna brought out coffee and the morning's biscuits, serving the 4 men who had ridden in. They were not exactly polite, but they accepted the food and sat on the porch benches to wait. Quinn rode in an hour later. Sienna heard his horse, heard him dismount, heard the change in his voice when Tom quickly briefed him. "Gentlemen," Quinn said, his voice calm but firm, "I believe there has been a misunderstanding. My cattle have been on my land, but it is possible some have wandered. Cattle do that. Why do not we ride out together and sort out exactly where the property line is and where the cattle are? Your wife is blind," one of the men said suddenly. It was not quite an accusation, but close. "She is," Quinn said, voice cooling. "What of it? Just surprised is all. And she is carrying a child. She is my wife. Yes, we are expecting our first child. I fail to see what that has to do with property lines and cattle. Just seems like a lot for a woman like her to manage. Ranch life, I mean. This is hard country. My wife manages just fine. Better than fine. And she is not your concern. Now, shall we ride out and settle this cattle matter, or would you prefer to keep insulting my family?" The men agreed to ride out. Miguel went with them while Tom stayed back with Sienna. She heard them ride off and she felt sick with worry. "They seemed angry," she said to Tom. "Men like that are always looking for an excuse to start trouble, but Quinn can handle himself. He is fair and he knows the property lines. If there are cattle on their land, he will move them back. If there are not, he will prove it." They returned 3 hours later. Sienna heard the horses and came out to the porch. "Well," she called. "Settled," Quinn said, and he sounded tired. Turns out about 20 head had wandered across the line after a section of fence went down in that storm last week. I agreed to repair the fence and move the cattle. They agreed that it was an honest mistake. So it is over. It is over. They are gone. After the men left, Quinn came inside and pulled Sienna into his arms. "I am sorry you had to deal with that. I was fine. Tom was with me, but Quinn, those men seemed hostile. Are we safe out here? We are safe. I am not without friends in this county, and I have never started trouble with anyone. That was just posturing. They wanted to make sure I knew they were watching their boundaries. We will be more careful about the cattle from now on." But Sienna noticed he started carrying his rifle more often when he rode out, and he asked Tom to stay closer to the house during the day. It made her uneasy, but she trusted Quinn to know what precautions were necessary. The baby came on a cold November night. The pains started just after dinner, and by midnight, Sienna was in hard labor. Quinn had ridden to town to fetch Mrs. Patterson, who had agreed to serve as midwife, and the hours until her arrival were frightening. But Mrs. Patterson arrived with the dawn, bustling and confident, and by noon Sienna held her firstborn child in her arms. "A boy," Mrs. Patterson announced. "Strong and healthy with a good set of lungs." Sienna felt the baby's face, his tiny fingers, his soft hair. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "He is perfect." Quinn was beside her, his voice thick with emotion. "He is beautiful, he has your nose, and I think your mouth, and he is so tiny, I am afraid to hold him." "You can hold him," Sienna said, carefully transferring the bundle to Quinn's arms. "He is ours, you will not hurt him." She heard Quinn's sharp intake of breath, then a sound that might have been a sob. "Hello, son. I am your father, and I promise I will do everything in my power to give you a good life." They named him Samuel after Sienna's father, Samuel James Northfield. The first months of Samuel's life were exhausting but joyful. Sienna learned to care for him using the same skills she used for everything else, relying on touch and sound and instinct. She could tell when he was hungry by the type of cry, when he needed changing, when he just wanted to be held. Quinn was a devoted father, singing to Samuel in his rough voice, carrying him around to show him the ranch, describing everything to the baby just as he had done for Sienna. "Look, Samuel, that is a hawk circling overhead, and over there that is the barn where we keep the horses. And this right here, this is your mother's garden. When you are bigger, you can help her weed." Watching Quinn with their son, Sienna fell even more in love with her husband. He was so gentle, so careful, so proud. Spring came again, bringing with it new growth and new challenges. Samuel was 6 months old, just starting to sit up on his own. The ranch was doing well. The cattle had brought good prices that year, and Quinn had hired another hand to help manage the growing herd. Then one evening in late April, Sienna was putting Samuel to bed when she heard horses again. Multiple riders approaching fast. "Quinn," she called. He was already moving to the door. She heard him grab the rifle from beside the entrance. "Stay inside," he said firmly, but she heard the door open, heard him step onto the porch. She moved to the window with Samuel in her arms, wishing desperately that she could see what was happening. "Northfield." A man's voice, one she recognized from the previous fall. "The Rawlings Ranch men." "What do you want?" Quinn's voice was hard. "We want justice. Your cattle have been on our land again. This time we lost 3 head to a sickness we think they brought. You owe us compensation. My cattle are healthy and on my land. I have been careful since last fall. If you lost cattle to sickness, I am sorry for it, but it did not come from me. You are a liar, and we are done being patient. You need to leave, now, before this goes somewhere none of us want. Or what? You will shoot us. That would make you a murderer." Sienna heard the distinct sound of guns being cocked. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She held Samuel tighter. "I will defend my property and my family," Quinn said. "But I do not want bloodshed. Let us settle this like reasonable men. Bring in the county land agent. Let him survey the property lines, examine the cattle. If I am at fault, I will compensate you fairly, but you will not threaten my family." There was a long, tense silence. Then a different voice spoke. "He is right. We should do this legally. If Northfield is cheating us, the land agent will prove it." "Fine," the first man said. "But if that agent finds in our favor, Northfield, you will pay. In money or in cattle, you will pay." "If I am at fault, I will pay willingly. Now get off my land." They rode off. Quinn came back inside, and Sienna heard him set the rifle down with shaking hands. "Are you all right?" she asked. "I am fine. But Sienna, I need you to listen carefully. If men like that come here again and I am not home, you take Samuel and hide in the root cellar. There is a bolt on the inside. You lock it and you do not come out until you hear my voice or Tom's voice telling you it is safe. You think they would harm us. I do not know. But I will not take chances with you and our son." The land agent came 2 weeks later, a severe man named Mr. Hendricks, who spent 3 days surveying the property lines and examining the cattle on both ranches. On the 4th day, he gathered both parties at the Northfield Ranch to deliver his findings. Sienna stood on the porch with Samuel on her hip while the men gathered in the yard. Quinn stood beside her, tense as a drawn bowstring. "Gentlemen," Mr. Hendricks said, his voice carrying in the still morning air, "I have completed my survey. The property lines are clearly marked in the county records. Mr. Northfield's cattle have remained on his property. However, I did find evidence that cattle from the Rawlings Ranch have crossed onto Northfield land on multiple occasions. That is impossible, the aggressive man, whom Sienna now knew was Jacob Rawlings himself, protested. It is not impossible. It is fact. Your fence line has several sections in poor repair. Your cattle have wandered through those breaks. Furthermore, I examined cattle on both ranches. Mr. Northfield's herd is healthy. Your herd has 3 heads showing signs of screwworm, which is not transmitted by proximity to other cattle but by fly infestation in wounds. This is a management issue, not a contamination issue. So you are saying this was our fault? Jacob sounded furious. I am saying Mr. Northfield is not at fault for your cattle losses. Whether you choose to view your management practices as needing improvement is your decision, but you will not lay blame where it does not belong. There was muttering, angry whispers. Then Jacob spoke again, his voice tight. Fine, we made a mistake, but Northfield, this is not over. You may have won this round, but I do not forget. There are no rounds, Quinn said firmly. We are neighbors, not enemies. Repair your fences, treat your cattle, manage your ranch. I will do the same. There is room enough in this county for both of us. The Rawlings men left, and though the immediate threat was gone, Sienna felt a lingering unease. Quinn did too. He increased the guard, making sure someone was always near the house when he was out on the range. But weeks passed, then months, and the Rawlings men did not return. Life settled back into its rhythms. Samuel grew, learning to crawl and then to walk, exploring his world with the fearlessness of a child who felt safe. Sienna taught him gently, showing him textures and shapes, singing to him, telling him stories. Quinn taught him about the ranch, about animals and land, about the weather and the seasons. When Samuel was 2 years old, Sienna became pregnant again. This time, she knew what to expect, and the pregnancy felt easier. The baby, another boy they named Thomas after Tom, was born on a warm August morning in 1885. He was bigger than Samuel had been, with a full head of dark hair and his father's strong jaw. 2 sons, Quinn said, his voice full of wonder as he held the newborn. I am the most fortunate man in Texas. You are the most fortunate man anywhere, Sienna corrected, exhausted but happy. Life with 2 young children was chaotic but full of joy. Samuel was curious about everything, asking endless questions that Quinn patiently answered. Thomas was a quieter baby, content to watch the world with solemn eyes. The house rang with children's laughter, with the sounds of family. Tom, the foreman, had become like an uncle to the boys. Pete had married a girl from town and moved into his own small house on the edge of the ranch property. And his wife Mary often came to visit Sienna, the 2 women becoming close friends. Miguel still sang his Spanish songs, and now he taught them to Samuel, who repeated the words with hilarious mispronunciation. The ranch continued to prosper. Quinn was a good manager, fair to his workers, careful with his resources. The cattle herd grew. He added sheep as well, diversifying. And when a severe drought hit the region in 1886, the Northfield Ranch was one of the few that survived intact because Quinn had drilled a deeper well the year before. During that drought, even the Rawlings Ranch struggled. Sienna heard through Mrs. Patterson that they had lost nearly a quarter of their herd. And then, one September afternoon, Jacob Rawlings himself rode up to the Northfield house. Sienna heard the horse, heard Quinn step out to meet him. She stood in the doorway, listening. Northfield, Jacob said, and his voice held none of its former hostility. I need to speak with you. I am listening. The drought has hit us hard. We are down to 1 working well and it is running dry. I know you drilled a deep well last year. I am here to ask if we can buy water from you. I will pay a fair price. Without it, we will lose the rest of our cattle." There was a long silence. Sienna held her breath, wondering what Quinn would say. The Rawlings men had threatened them, had accused them falsely, had made their lives difficult. Then Quinn spoke. "You can have the water. No charge." "What?" "I said you can have the water. No charge. We are neighbors, maybe not friendly ones, but neighbors nonetheless. I will not watch your cattle die over a grudge. Bring your herd to the south pasture. There is good grass there too, near the creek. The well feeds it. Your cattle can graze and water there until the drought breaks." "I do not understand. Why would you help me after the way I treated you?" "Because it is the right thing to do. Because I know what it is like to struggle. And because my wife taught me that holding on to anger only hurts yourself. So bring your cattle, we will work out the details." Sienna felt tears prick her eyes. This was the man she had married. Not perfect, but trying always to be good, to be fair, to be kind. After Jacob left, Quinn came inside. Sienna went to him, wrapped her arms around him. "That was well done," she said softly. "Was it? Tom thinks I am crazy, says Rawlings does not deserve help. Maybe he does not, but you gave it anyway. That makes you a better man than he is." The drought eventually broke. The Rawlings cattle survived. And Jacob Rawlings, to his credit, did not forget the kindness shown. He brought gifts at Christmas, toys for the boys, cloth for Sienna. He repaired fences without being asked and warned Quinn when he heard of cattle rustlers working the area. The two families never became close friends, but the hostility ended, replaced by mutual respect. The years flowed by like water. Samuel grew tall and serious, fascinated by books once he learned to read. Thomas was the wilder one, always climbing things, always adventuring, giving Sienna heart palpitations with his fearlessness. In 1888, a daughter was born. They named her Rose, and she was a perfect blend of both parents, with Quinn's determination and Sienna's gentle nature. "A girl," Quinn said, holding her for the first time. "I have no idea what to do with a girl." "You will figure it out," Sienna said. "You always do," and he did. Rose had him wrapped around her tiny finger from the start. He braided her hair, though his attempts were clumsy. He picked wildflowers for her. He carried her everywhere, narrating the world just as he had always done for Sienna. Samuel started helping with the ranch work when he turned 10, learning to ride and rope and care for cattle. He was a natural, patient with animals, thoughtful in his approach. Thomas was 8 and still too wild for serious work, but he helped in his own way, collecting eggs and feeding chickens and mucking stalls. Rose, at age 4, followed Sienna everywhere, learning to cook and sew and manage a household. She had been born with perfect vision, but she learned early to close her eyes and navigate by touch and sound, wanting to be like her mother. It made Sienna's heart ache with love. "You do not have to do that, sweetheart," she told Rose one day. "You have a gift I do not. You can see. Use that gift." "But Mama, you see everything that matters. You see us. You see Papa. You see the ranch. You just see it differently." Out of the mouths of children, Sienna thought, and hugged her daughter close. Life was not without difficulties. There were hard winters and dry summers. There were injuries and illnesses. Tom passed away in 1891, and they all mourned him. Pete took over as foreman, and he was good at it, running the ranch with quiet competence. But through everything, the core remained. Quinn and Sienna together, building a life. The love that had started as a tentative hope had grown into something unshakable, a foundation on which everything else was built. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Quinn took Sienna riding. They left the children with Mary and rode out to a secluded spot by the creek where the cottonwoods grew thick. "You remember when you first arrived?" Quinn asked as they sat on a blanket by the water. 10 years ago. I was so nervous." I thought you would take one feel of my face and run screaming. I remember thinking your voice was deeper than I had imagined, and I remember the way you took my hand and let me see you in my own way. That was when I first thought this might work. When did you know you loved me?" She thought about it. There was not one moment. It was 1,000 small moments. The way you described the sky to me, the way you learned to read so we could share books, the way you held me at night, the way you loved our children, all of it together. I knew when you nursed me through that cold the first winter. You were so patient, so kind. I thought, this woman is too good for me, but I am going to hold on tight and never let go. And have you let go? Never. Not for a single day. Sienna, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. You took a broken, lonely man and made him whole. You gave me a family, a purpose, a reason to be better. I do not say it enough, but I love you more now than I did 10 years ago, and I will love you more tomorrow than I do today. She felt tears slide down her cheeks. I love you too. You gave me a home when I had none. You made me feel valuable, capable, wanted. You never treated my blindness as a flaw, only as a difference. You see me, truly see me in a way no one else ever has. They made love there by the creek, tender and slow, celebrating 10 years of marriage, of partnership, of love. More years passed. Samuel fell in love with a girl from town, a teacher named Margaret, and married her in 1895. They built a small house on the ranch property, and Margaret proved to be a perfect addition to the family, intelligent and kind. Thomas, now 15, was still wild but channeling it into breaking horses, and he had a gift for it. Rose, at 9, was becoming a young lady, reading everything she could get her hands on and already talking about becoming a teacher like her sister-in-law. In 1897, Samuel and Margaret gave Quinn and Sienna their first grandchild, a boy they named Quinn after his grandfather. Holding the baby, Sienna felt the circle complete. She had come to Texas as a blind woman with nothing, willing to take a chance on a stranger, and that chance had given her everything. A husband who loved her, children who thrived, a ranch that prospered, a life full of purpose and joy. "What are you thinking?" Quinn asked. They were on the porch again, their favorite spot, watching the sunset he described and she imagined. "I am thinking that I am grateful for all of it. The hard parts and the easy parts, the scary moments and the beautiful ones, all of it led here to this. Regrets? Not a single one. You. My only regret is the years I wasted being lonely before you, but even that had a purpose. It led me to place that advertisement. It led me to you." As the sun set over the Texas plains, painting the sky in colors Sienna could only know through Quinn's descriptions, they sat hand in hand, exactly as they had done for 15 years. A blind woman and a scarred man, unlikely partners who had found in each other exactly what they needed. The ranch continued to thrive under Quinn's management, and later, under Samuel's as he took on more responsibility. Thomas eventually married a spirited young woman named Anna who could ride as well as any man. And together, they managed the horse breeding operation that became a significant part of the ranch's income. Rose did become a teacher, running a small school in Fort Stockton, and returning home every weekend to regale her family with stories of her students. In 1903, on a warm spring evening much like that first evening when Sienna had arrived in Texas 21 years earlier, Quinn and Sienna sat on their porch. They were older now, gray in their hair, lines on their faces. But Quinn still described the world for her, and she still listened with the same wonder she had felt that first day. "Tell me what you see," she said, the same request she had made so many times. "I see our ranch, thriving and full of life. I see our children's houses, smoke rising from their chimneys. I see cattle grazing and horses running. I see the cottonwoods we planted together, now tall and strong. I see the garden you tend, bursting with vegetables and flowers. But mostly, Sienna, I see you. And you are still the most beautiful thing I have ever laid eyes on. Flatterer, she said, but she smiled. It is the truth. You are beautiful, not despite your blindness or because of it, but simply because you are you. The woman who took a chance on a scarred rancher. The woman who built a home and raised children and loved me even when I did not think I deserved love. The woman who sees with her heart instead of her eyes and sees more clearly than anyone I know. And you are the man who gave me a life worth living, who never made me feel less than whole, who loved me exactly as I am, who kept his promise to never let me feel like a burden. You are my home, Quinn. You always have been. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the evening sounds. Cattle lowing, horses whinnying, the windmill creaking, children's laughter from one of the nearby houses. The sounds of family, of home, of love. You think we did right? Quinn asked. All those years ago, getting married the way we did. Two strangers agreeing to build a life together. I think we did more than right. I think we were blessed. Not everyone finds what we found. Not everyone gets a love that grows stronger with time instead of fading. We were fortunate, Quinn, and wise enough to recognize that fortune and hold on to it. I would do it all again, he said. Every moment, every challenge, every joy, all of it. So would I. As darkness fell over West Texas, they remained on the porch, hands intertwined, hearts beating in sync. Two people who had started as strangers, brought together by circumstance and a mail-order bride advertisement, who had built something beautiful and lasting. The ranch would continue long after they were gone, passed down through generations. Their children would tell their grandchildren about the blind woman from Boston and the scarred rancher from Texas who took a chance on each other. About the love that grew from practical necessity into something profound and unshakable. But for now, in this moment, they were simply Quinn and Sienna Northfield, married for 21 years, still in love, still grateful for the day their paths crossed. I love you, Quinn said, the same words he had spoken thousands of times but which never grew old. I love you too, Sienna replied, the same response that meant as much now as it had the first time she said it. The stars came out, brilliant in the clear Texas sky. Quinn described them to her, painting pictures with his words as he had done for over 2 decades. And Sienna listened, seeing the beauty through his eyes, grateful for every moment, every word, every touch. They had found each other in the most unlikely way. Two broken people looking for something neither quite believed they would find. But find it they did. And they held on tight, building a life together that was more than either had dared to dream. In the distance, a coyote howled. The cattle shifted and settled. The windmill turned in the night breeze. And on the porch of the ranch house, under a sky full of stars, Quinn and Sienna sat together, their love a beacon in the darkness, proving that sometimes the best things in life come from taking a chance on someone who seems all wrong but turns out to be exactly right. Years continued to roll forward like the seasons, each bringing its own joys and sorrows. In 1905, Thomas and Anna welcomed twin daughters into the world, and the ranch rang with twice the infant cries and twice the laughter. Rose married a young lawyer from El Paso who loved her fierce intelligence and gentle heart, and they settled in town though she visited often. Samuel and Margaret had 2 more children, giving Quinn and Sienna 5 grandchildren total by 1907. The ranch house that had once echoed with Quinn's lonely footsteps now overflowed with family every Sunday, 3 generations gathering for Sienna's famous roast and Quinn's storytelling. Quinn's health began to falter when he reached his 60s. The years of hard ranch work had taken their toll on his body. His joints ached, and he moved slower than before. But his mind remained sharp, and his love for Sienna never diminished. If anything, it grew stronger as they faced the reality that their time together would not last forever. "I am slowing down," he admitted one evening in 1910. They were in their bedroom, and she was helping him undress for bed, her hands finding the buttons by memory and touch. "We both are," Sienna said. "That is what happens when you live a full life. I worry about leaving you." "Do not speak of such things." "Sienna, we have to speak of it. I am 60 years old. You are 56. We have been blessed with many years together, but we will not have forever. When I am gone, the ranch will go to Samuel. He will take care of you. Margaret loves you like a mother. You will be well cared for." "I do not want to be cared for by our children. I want to grow old with you. I want many more years of sitting on the porch while you describe the sunset. I want to hold great-grandchildren together. I want—" Her voice broke. He pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "I want those things too, and we will have as many of them as God grants us. But whenever my time comes, I need you to know something. These 30 years with you have been the best years of my life. You made me whole, Sienna. You gave me everything I never knew I needed. If I died tomorrow, I would die a happy man because I got to love you." She clutched him tighter, tears soaking into his nightshirt. "You are not allowed to die tomorrow, or next week, or next year. Do you understand? You are stuck with me for a long while yet." He laughed, the sound rumbling in his chest. "Yes, madam, I will do my best to stick around." And he did. Quinn lived another 8 years, years full of grandchildren and ranch work, though Samuel took on most of the heavy labor. They celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary in 1922, surrounded by family. Their children and grandchildren threw them a party that lasted all day, with food and music and dancing. "Describe the scene for me," Sienna asked Quinn as they sat in chairs of honor, watching the celebration. "It is beautiful chaos," Quinn said, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "Samuel is trying to teach young Quinn how to dance, and the boy has 2 left feet. Thomas is arm wrestling Pete's oldest son, and I think the boy might actually win. Rose is playing the piano and Margaret is singing. Your voice was always better, but Margaret does well enough. The grandchildren are running wild, playing tag between the tables. Anna is pregnant again, though she has not announced it yet. I can tell by the way she keeps touching her belly when she thinks no one is looking. You always notice everything. I notice what matters, and family matters most." The party went late into the night, and when it finally ended and they were alone in their room, Quinn held Sienna close. 40 years, he murmured. 40 years since I married a blind woman from Boston and discovered that she could see more than anyone I had ever known. 40 years since I married a scarred rancher and discovered that his heart was the most beautiful thing about him. They fell asleep in each other's arms as they had done for 14,000 nights and more. Quinn passed away peacefully in his sleep in the spring of 1923. Sienna woke to find him still beside her, his hand in hers, his face peaceful. She did not scream or cry out. She simply held his hand and whispered, "Thank you for every moment. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for giving me a life." The funeral was attended by half the county. Quinn had been respected, even loved by many. His fairness and kindness had made him a pillar of the community. But no one mourned him as deeply as Sienna. She had lost her partner, her love, her eyes on the world. The weeks after his death were dark. She moved through the routines by memory, but everything felt empty. Samuel and Margaret urged her to move into their house to let them care for her, but she refused. "This is my home," she told them. "Quinn and I built this life together. I am not leaving it." "Then I will move in with you," Rose said. Her husband had passed away 2 years earlier, and she was alone as well. Two widows can keep each other company. So Rose moved into the ranch house, and the two women created a new rhythm. Rose described things the way Quinn had, though never quite as vividly. She read to Sienna every evening. They cooked together and tended the garden. And slowly, the sharp edge of grief dulled into a manageable ache. Sienna lived another 7 years after Quinn's death. She was never truly happy again, not the way she had been with him, but she found contentment. She watched her grandchildren grow into adults, met her great-grandchildren, and continued to be the matriarch of the family Quinn had helped her build. On a warm evening in October of 1930, Sienna sat on the porch with Rose. She was 76 years old, frail but still sharp of mind. "Tell me what you see," she said to Rose, the same question she had asked Quinn so many times. Rose described the ranch still thriving under Samuel's care. She described the sunset, painting it in words. Then she paused. "Mama, what did you see in him? In Papa, I mean. When you first arrived, when he was just a stranger, what made you love him?" Sienna smiled. "I heard his kindness in his voice. I felt his gentleness in his touch. I sensed his loneliness because it matched my own. And I recognized in him a man who would love me not despite my blindness, but inclusive of it, who would see all of me and not flinch away. That was what I saw, and I was right. He loved you so much, and I loved him. I love him still. Death does not end love, it just changes where we direct it. I still talk to him, you know. Every night before I sleep, I tell him about my day. I like to think he hears me. I think he does too." That night, Sienna went to sleep in the bed she had shared with Quinn for 40 years. She did not wake up. Rose found her in the morning, peaceful, a slight smile on her face, one hand stretched out across the bed as if reaching for someone who had finally come to take her home. They buried her next to Quinn under the cottonwood trees they had planted together so many years ago. The entire family gathered, children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, to say goodbye to the woman who had been the heart of the Northfield family. Samuel stood at the grave and spoke. "My mother came to Texas as a blind woman with nothing but courage and hope. She married a man she had never met, moved to a place she had never seen, and built a life that touched everyone around her. She taught us that love is not about seeing with your eyes but with your heart. That strength comes not from what you have, but from how you use what you have been given. She and my father created something beautiful together, and that legacy lives on in all of us." The ranch continued for generations, passed down through the family. The story of Quinn and Sienna became legend, told and retold to each new generation. The blind woman from Boston and the scarred rancher from Texas, who took a chance on each other and built an empire of love. Their graves under the cottonwood trees became a place where family members went to remember, to reflect, to draw strength. And if you listened carefully on quiet evenings, it was said you could still hear Quinn describing the sunset and Sienna's soft laughter in response, their love echoing through time, eternal and unbreakable. The mail-order bride had been blind from birth, and the lonely rancher had said, "Then you will never see my scars." But what neither of them had known was that their imperfections would become their greatest strength, that their differences would draw them together rather than push them apart, and that their love would outlast their lives, becoming a beacon for generations to come. In the end, they had both found exactly what they needed. Not perfection, but partnership. Not pity, but respect. Not sight, but insight. And most importantly, not loneliness, but love. Deep, abiding, transformative love that proved that sometimes the best things in life come to those who are brave enough to take a chance on someone different, someone unexpected, someone who sees the world in their own unique way. Their story was not just a love story. It was a testament to the power of acceptance, of choosing to see beyond surface differences, of building something beautiful from broken pieces. It was proof that family is not just about blood, but about the bonds we choose to forge. And it was a reminder that love, real love, the kind that lasts, is built not in a single moment but in thousands of small choices to stay, to fight, to grow together through whatever life brings. The Northfield Ranch stood for over 100 years, finally being donated to the state of Texas as a historical site in the 1980s. Visitors can still tour the house where Quinn and Sienna lived, see the bedroom where their children were born, walk through the garden Sienna tended, and sit on the porch where they spent countless evenings together. And under the cottonwood trees, now massive and ancient, the graves remain. Quinn Northfield, 1850–1923, beloved husband and father. Sienna Northfield, 1854–1930, beloved wife and mother. The headstones are simple, but they do not need to be elaborate. The lives they lived spoke volumes that stone never could. Their love story, begun with a simple advertisement and a letter of honest reply, became one of the most enduring in Texas history. It proved that sometimes fate has a plan, even when that plan seems unlikely. That sometimes the person you need most is the one you never expected. And that love, true love, can flourish even in the harshest conditions when tended by two people committed to growing together. Quinn had been right when he told Sienna she would never see his scars. But what he had not known then was that she would feel them, trace them with gentle fingers, and love him more, not less, because of them. Just as he had loved her more, not less, because of her blindness. They had both been marked by circumstances beyond their control, but those marks became part of the map that led them to each other. And in the end, that was the greatest gift of all. Not perfect vision or unmarred skin, but the perfect match of two imperfect people who chose each other and never looked back.